My name is Paul Lemley. I started this business in 1996, and we're in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Excellent. So 1996, Paul. Let's jump. We talked a little bit off camera for a second. I'm going to come back to those stories and stuff like that. Describe Gettysburg before we get into the actual beer industry when you guys had started. Describe Gettysburg in 1996 when you got started. What was the environment like? Paint the picture for anybody that wasn't here.
I was retiring from the Army. I own the westernmost farm on East Cavalry Field, so I live on the battlefield. Um, at that time, the beer industry was really very much in its infancy and getting started. There was not a brewery in Gettysburg. I love this barn and got the opportunity to buy it and fix it, adaptively reuse it, basically.
Awesome. And so what was the function? Was it an abandoned barn at that time or was it a functional farm?
It was an abandoned barn. There was a construction company that had placed some material in here, and they had a business that they were running out of the farmhouse.
All right. So 1996, so almost 30 years ago. What was the population like and what was the reception like when you first opened up the doors and the community started finding out what you were doing?
Very mixed. I had a lot of trouble with the township, which is, all in the past, but, there were issues with water and sewer, with running three-phase electric, with, getting gas, service on the property. So there were a lot of those sorts of challenges.
How about from a staffing standpoint, like 30 years ago to now? Was it a lot different of environment to find people that would work with you and stuff?
Of course, yes. There were a lot more, there were a lot more workers in 1996 than there are now. Um, we've always thought that a small number of really motivated, dedicated workers is better than having a huge staff, but it was easier to find people 29 years ago.
How about the community? Was it the same as it is now? Like what were the demographics and kind of what were the interests and stuff then?
We didn't have this neighborhood built around us. It was all open land, so this was more isolated. But this is a destination. We don't get walk-by traffic. At one time in the brew pub industry, people would have told you that if you don't have walk-by traffic, you're not going to make it. Walk-by traffic, in my experience, wants to use the bathroom and wants Coors Light. They don't want what you have. If you're a destination, the people who come are coming for the right reason.
How about as far as Gettysburg? Let's assume somebody that's watching this has never been to Gettysburg before. Talk a little bit about outside of the brewery. If they come to the brewery, what are some other things that are going on that they can do to fill their day or their weekends?
Yeah, back then we get 1.8 million visitors a year to the park. The park is over 3,000 acres of the main battlefield and another 1,000 acres of the cavalry battlefield. You can easily spend a couple of days looking at and learning about the Battle of Gettysburg.
As far as your life, let's take you 18-year-old Paul. Did he ever envision owning a brewery and a distillery?
I know probably at least a bar. I think that aspiration has always sort of been there. It was discussed when I was in college with other similar minded people. Hey, if we ever grow up, maybe we could have like an Irish pub or a bar or something. But I was very lucky and blessed that I got to actually do that.
What were you ever interested in self-employment and entrepreneurship back then?
Yes. I went to West Point, so I did a career in the Army. And at that time, you are not self-employed, and there is no opportunity for entrepreneurship. But you look forward to the future. And when I was on my way to my 20th college reunion, a friend really brought up this idea, and we collaborated on the idea. We ultimately did not collaborate on the execution, but early on, he actually helped a lot in the brewery and design and setting up some of the brewery side.
Awesome. And how about the structure today? Like, have you have a lot of partners, or is it you as far as the organizational leadership and things?
I'm the 90% partner. I have a 10% partner who's a very close friend, and does a lot of the repair, maintenance, construction side of things, and tries not to be involved behind the bar. So yes, I have been through a great number of partners over time. Partners come and go, because people think they want to do this, and in fact, it's a little more complicated than it looks.
Exactly.
You know that.
Exactly. Talk to me a little bit about renovating a barn versus renovating like a warehouse or a retail or a former restaurant or something like that. What kind of challenges came up when you were renovating this barn, excuse me?
Well, the barn's great because it's a solid structure and it doesn't have a lot of interior walls. So we really have a lot of open space. Victory had a similar experience with a Wonder Bread warehouse, industrial sort of thing. If you have a big open space, you can work from there. You can't go to a mall because the dollars per square foot really prohibit doing what you want to do. It works on volume, and the brewery takes up a lot of space. So
yeah, exactly. What do you think about like give me like one positive and then one like negative but learning experience like over the past almost 30 years now of running this place? Like what's your favorite like a memory that sticks out where you're like, if you ever close the doors on this, that one's always going to give you a smile?
Well, we talked off camera about the fact that this whole business is about making people happy, about the feeling that you get when you have a room full of people who are enjoying themselves. And it's not just the alcohol, it's the camaraderie that comes from, and it doesn't matter whether it's a high school reunion or whether it's a wedding. A lot of people coming together, people are comfortable in a barn, and so it's fun. And I think people have fun and enjoy beverages and food and just being here. So that's my sort of positive thing. Negative things, I mean, even when you have planned well, there's things that come up that you cannot anticipate. And I have had several times when I've, gone before the administrative law judge and been fined for a number of things that I'm convinced I'm either wasn't guilty or should not have been punished as harshly. But that's the negative side. If it is my hope that when I am finally unlicensed as a person, I would like to spend a little time with the governor and talk about how some of these systems actually work. I don't think he knows.
No,
to be honest.
No, that's a really good point. And there's a lot of things I think that in the alcohol industry specifically, and a lot of the adult beverage and adult industries that are those details that aren't talked about very often, and those things that do happen. Not only are they not understood by the top, I don't feel like they understand the ramifications of what they mean to somebody's psyche, somebody's mindset, as well as everything else that is revolved around that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. What do you think we've both been in this business a long time, and especially the past 5 years, the industry's just immensely changed. What do you think you would give advice to anybody today that said, I want to go start a brewery today? What type of advice would you give them as opposed to pause and slow down a little bit? You know what I mean? Like, would you have any advice for them, or would it be to pause and make sure you know everything? That could also be a valid answer.
I don't think I recommend that you spend your money starting a brewery. If there's plenty of existing breweries that are going into various forms of bankruptcy, and there's some opportunities there, but starting from scratch seems to me like a bad idea. For a long time, we believed that having a brewery and a distillery was logical because they're tied together. Um, I I was the first one in Pennsylvania to have both licenses under one roof, and I demonstrated sufficiently that it's not worth doing. Um, Either of those two give you a lot of privileges that you would have had to pay dearly for to have a full license. Full licenses in Pennsylvania are very expensive. And if you are a manufacturer, you get a lot of, you get a bar to run. You have some limitations on what you can serve, but you still get a bar and a restaurant. So I feel like I would tell you to do one or the other, but not to try to do both things at one time. The other guys who have tried similarly have also found that it's not they, because of the way the rules are written, they don't work together as well as they should.
When did you transition from being strictly a brewery to having both? And then when did you kind of transition to where you are now?
So in the very old days, we were just a brewery. There were no provisions for a small distillery. When we restarted the business under Battlefield Brew Works, that was a little over 12 years ago. We intended when we started the brewery to get it going and then also have the distillery. So the intention was there. We probably did almost 2 years of just a brewery, and we got our transition to work. And I hung on to both ideas simultaneously until about 3 years ago. And off camera, I can tell you some of the horror stories of trying to do both things.
I'm sure.
But the only two things I can't do are make beer and sell beer to go. Everything else that I had, the distillery allows me to do, and being able to buy any beer made in Pennsylvania and sell it over my bar is so much easier than making beer. So I can buy a case of beer. If things don't go well, I just don't buy that case again. Or I can put on a sextal or a half barrel. And if it doesn't sell, I lose $150. But if you make a couple 100 gallons of beer, you have a lot more investment and risk. And I found that wasn't really necessary, and you pay a brewer.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you do it yourself.
Yeah. So talk about like when oh, actually that, before I go to the end part, I'm glad you just said that. As far as the structure goes, are you owner operator? Obviously you're here all day long. Are you also a brewer by trade, or has that always been something that you've had to bring someone in for, or you jump in when needed? Or
I brewed a long time ago, and I don't want to go back to that. Any brewer that finds out about distilling is never going to go back and be a brewer. And on this iteration, I had a partner that was a very good brewer initially. I have been through a lot of hired brewers, and I have reached the point where I don't want to pay a brewer. I have been on the distilled side from the beginning, and I like that side. We've been very successful. We've got medals in international competition, and we feel good about the distilled side.
Let's go into the product mix a little bit and kind of what somebody can expect to experience when they come in here. So if somebody's coming from out of town, never been to Gettysburg, let's talk a little bit about, the beer situation, the spirits, and then the food and kind of what the environment's like.
I'll start with the food. I have tried several different, letting someone else do the food and hold them, give them all of this opportunity to have a restaurant without a lot of the upfront cost. Some of those have been successful. Some of them haven't. When my current manager came to work for me, she wanted to have her own kitchen and do the food. So we have been in that program now for almost 3 years, and it works great. You have to have somebody who wants to do it. That's I guess, the key to everything. So the food is great. She does a great job, and she wants to do the food. Beer, we can keep 6 draft beers on tap, and my requirement is only that we have Pennsylvania beer. So to increase the breadth of the mix, we also have canned beer, and we have both more industrial canned beer as well as craft beer to offer to people who come for the beer. It's still a brew works. We do the works. We make root beer and ginger ale. We have beer. We have the distilled products. The distilled products, I have vodka, gin, rum, and liqueur. And then on the whiskey side, we have 4 whiskeys, 1 bourbon. The Canadian, obviously, we didn't make. We bought it. It's been 14 years in the barrel. It's a really good product, but it's not mine. I'm not Canadian, didn't buy Canadian grain. And then we have our own rye that we serve both at 80 and at 118 proof.
Excellent. What about, tell me a story, not that makes you laugh or makes you like really like a special moment that happened in the past 30 years that you feel like only would have happened if you had done this.
I met Custer's last living relative. Custer himself didn't have children, but his brother did. And this was in that line. He was in Gettysburg to see, the legacy stuff. And he came here, and we had a great, time together, drank beer and had a discussion. Drinking beer with people who come in is, I guess, part of the perk of it's one of the perks of the job. You want to try all the whiskey. I feel like, golly, I ought to at least have a little with you so that we, know what we're talking about. If I was a guy who never imbibed, I'd have a very difficult time convincing people this is incredibly smooth. How do you know? It just would be a sham. We don't do that.
Excellent. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time today and talking about your story. I told you I'd keep it short and sweet and just get right to the story, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate your transparency, and I want you to know, as somebody that's been in the business for 20 years and also as a self-employed entrepreneur as well, the struggle is real. It's not a victimhood thing, but also my adoration for you, because I'm in a place where, yeah, I live out of my truck. I don't have an office. I don't have overhead. I don't have, I have some staff and everything like that. But you guys that really pioneered this, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, you did stuff when everything was against you. You did stuff when everybody told you were fucking crazy. And you're still here almost 30 years later, and you're in a place where you're now looking back with an inventory and a wealth of experiences that are moving you forward. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and I want everybody to know that, because that's why I'm doing this. I'm traveling around Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, collecting these stories, because these are the stories that are more than just the pint that gets you fun and gives you a hangover the next day and has you telling stories with your buddies. It's more than that. It's this passion, and it's this dedication, and it's this resilience that stands by every single obstacle and everyone that is intentionally or unintentionally trying to stop you from getting to this point today. So I mean that, and thank you so much for your time today.
I'm glad if you've been a client and come in, and that we try to keep it light and have we have an atmosphere that really encourages people to come in and enjoy themselves, ask questions, talk about the barn, talk about the history.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.